Okay. Hi guys. Hello. Welcome to We Learn English. How are you guys doing today? Okay. Good evening, all of you. So, what's the word for today? How are you guys doing? Awesome, fabulous, mind blowing, superb, amazing. Tell me in the chat box. Hi, hi, hi. Hi, Manoj. Hi, Deepa, Pushpa, Leena, Shikha. Fabulous. Okay, most of you are doing awesome. So, warm welcome to all of you again to We Learn English. My name is Dhiraj Sir, your master teacher of English at Vedantu. Uh, I hope as you guys are actually writing it, you all of you are doing awesome. Amazing, zing, zing, zing. Right, right, right. Wonderful. So, what is that we're going to learn today is one of the most important academic grammar topics, that is clauses. Not only it is important, but then it is kind of very, very challenging for many students. So, I thought I'll begin the first session of it. I'll divide this topic in 3 sessions. So, today we are doing the first session. Okay. All right. So, can we start the topic right now? Are we all excited for the topic? Tell me how excited you are. Show your excitement with a yo in the chat box here. Yo, and let's rock it now. Study point. Chalo, theek hai. Wonderful. And before we begin the topic, I guess some of you haven't subscribed to the channel yet. Make sure you subscribe it right now if you haven't subscribed. Click on that bell icon as well so that you don't miss the updates, right? Because we have this amazing 360-degree approach learning going on this channel. Not only English, but also personality development, mind psychology, and many and much more to hear. Perfect, perfect, perfect. And of course, you keep sharing useful videos, keep sharing helpful videos with your friends, near and dear ones, and so that they can also subscribe. It's all about, once you're subscribed, you're kind of notified about the updates. That is when you don't miss the learning. Okay. Hi, Pushpa. Hi, Bharat. Then we have, okay, Dharmanand, you've already subscribed. Awesome, 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 awesome. Chalo, theek hai. Let's start. So the topic that we are doing today is clauses. The clauses. You see, if you like this image work here, we are doing this clauses. Hi Akash. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for the compliment, guys. All of you are awesome here. Chalo, theek hai. Let's get started. Let's dive into the world of clauses, guys. Right now. Okay, let's understand. See, when we use this word clause, let's see what this is. Um, English language, learning any language. So particularly if you're talking about English language, of course, it all starts with learning alphabet, right? A to Z letters. After alphabet, we learn words. Now, after words, we, of course, write sentences. But if you see, there is something between these words and sentences. There is something between these words and sentences. You have, after the words, you have a phrase. After phrases, there is something called clause as a component, and then come sentences, and of course you use everything to write the paragraph. That's how the structuring is. So let us understand what a clause is. So first of all, we'll simply understand what a clause is. A clause is nothing but a group of words that contains only one finite verb. Look at this here. A clause is basically a group of words that contains only and only one finite verb. You see, only one finite verb. And most of you get confused between this definition of a clause and a phrase, like difference between a clause and a phrase. So clause is a group of words that contains only one finite verb, and phrase is a group of words that is without any finite verb. That's the main difference. Okay. So we'll see what that is. Now, to understand this topic really well, we need we need to know this here. First of all, we need to know what a finite verb is. If you remember the topic that we had done, finite, non-finite verbs, we we had the same slide here. So I'm using the same slide purposely so that we get the same link. In case you haven't checked out the topic non-finite verbs, so go and watch that video whenever possible. So about the non-finite verbs, here we do not have to worry about non-finite verbs. We'll simply see what a finite verb is. For those of you still don't know what a finite verb is, finite verb is a verb that shows tense and has a subject before it. Simple. See, subject hai or possible hai. This is what we had discussed when we did non-finite verbs, topic non-finite verbs. So for a finite verb, if you see, subject hai, it has a subject or using a subject before it is possible. That's why it is written subject hai or possible hai, and it shows tense. See, look at this here. After he ate the cake, Dhiraj laughed. Maybe there was something mixed in a cake. Maybe some laughing powder or something like that. So you see, after he ate the cake, Dhiraj laughed. So the word ate and the word laughed, these are finite verbs. Why are these finite verbs? Because if you see, they show tense. The word ate, of course, clearly talks about past tense, and the word laughed also clearly talks about past tense, and they have a subject before it. What is the subject before ate? It's he. What is the subject before laughed? It's Dhiraj. Look at the second example here. Dhiraj ate the cake and laughed. So again, ate has a subject, Dhiraj, and before laughed there is no subject, but using a subject is possible. So Dhiraj ate the cake and he laughed. I can add he here, right? That's what is written. Subject hai or possible hai. Matlab you either the finite verb already has a subject or using a subject before that is possible, and it definitely shows tense. So that's what a finite verb is. Okay. I hope this is clear. So we need to know what a finite verb is. That is something we know now. After we know what a finite verb is, we must know what subject and object is. I guess most of you already know this, but then we'll do a quick revision, a quick recap for those who don't know. So when we use the word subject in English grammar, the word subject refers to a noun or pronoun before the verb. There is a doer of the action. You see, for example, in this sentence, if you see Jennifer walked to the shop. Now the doer of the action, the person is Jennifer. So Jennifer is the subject here. Object simply is the receiver of the action. See, the object of a sentence is a person or thing that receives the action. Basically, uh, it is on which the action is done. That the subject does something to it. So example, if I say Terry ate a cake, look at the sentence here. Terry is somebody's name. So he's a person, he ate a cake. Now the action of eating is done on the object, a cake. So the object over here is a cake. Okay. Perfect. So what we now know is a clause is a group of words. I'll do a quick recap here. A clause is a group of words that contains only one finite verb. To understand topics in detail, to understand it thoroughly, we must know what a finite verb is. So we now know what a finite verb is. We must know what a subject is, a subject and object. So we now know this as well. And we also should know what subordinators are. So subordinating conjunctions. If you see, one of the parts of speech is conjunctions, right? Like every part of speech has types. Noun has types, pronoun has types. Similarly, conjunction has three types. But here we are simply talking about one of its types, that is subordinating conjunctions. Basically subordinators. They are also called subordinators. So we need three weapons, okay? Basically, we need three weapons to do this topic. Our weapon number one is finite verb. It's like to do the game of clauses, to know the game of clauses, to learn the game of clauses as a topic. We need three weapons. You play any game, you actually need weapons or players, right? So to do the game of clauses, that means to learn clauses, there are three things, three concepts that we need to be completely thorough with. So finite verb, number one. Second, subject object, that's two. And the third one is we must know what subordinating conjunctions are. So these are the common subordinators that we use, all these words. The words like although, as far as if, as soon as, because, before, even if. So you can take a screenshot of this list. These are the most common subordinators which are used. And this is what we need to know for clauses. Okay. All right, perfect. Now look at this here. Now we will talk about the types of clauses. If you see, in English there are various types of clauses. Okay, but then when we talk about the various types, the different types of clauses, all that is divided into two main categories. So two main categories of clauses, two main types, most important types. We call it main clause, which is also called principal clause, and you can also call it independent clause. Okay, so main clause, principal clause, that's how it works here. All right, just give me a quick minute here right now. Give me a quick minute. If there is a small technical issue, 1 minute. Give me a minute, guys. Okay, can you guys see me? Okay, just a minute. Okay, it's okay now. Perfect. So we have two main clauses here, two main categories. First is the main clause, which is also called principal clause. And in some grammar books, the word independent clause is also used. And the second one is called dependent clause or subordinate clause. It is commonly known as subordinate clause, but another name for that is dependent clause. Main clause is independent, subordinate clause is dependent. So these are the two main types: main clause, subordinate clause, main clause, subordinate clause. And main clause is also known as principal clause and independent clause. And another name for subordinate clause is dependent clause. So these are the names given to it, two main types. So let us understand what a main clause is. Main clause, it is simply a clause that can stand alone on its own. What do we mean by that? That can stand alone on its own. It can make complete sense on its own. That is why it is called independent. See, it can make complete sense, and it must have only one finite verb. Because what is the definition of a clause? A clause is a group of words with only and only one finite verb. So, example, when I say we cannot play cricket, look at the word cannot here. The word cannot is a finite verb, the one that is highlighted. So it's a group of words with only one finite verb. That's why it's a clause. And why it is called a main clause here? Because it makes complete sense on its own. So we cannot play cricket is complete sense on its own. But look at the subordinate clause. Dependent clause or subordinate clause is a clause which has a subject plus verb combination, but it cannot stand on its own. Look at the words which are highlighted in yellow. It cannot stand on its own. Why? It cannot stand on its own in terms of complete meaning. That means it depends on the main clause to have complete meaning. It cannot have a complete meaning on its own. Look at this example. Since it is raining. Now, when I simply say since it is raining, it has a finite verb is, of course. That's why it's a clause. A clause is a group of words with only one finite verb. But this is not an independent clause. This is a dependent clause, a subordinate clause, because it does not make complete sense on its own. It depends on the main clause to make sense, to make complete sense. Okay, that's what it is. Yeah. So Akash has rightly pointed out we cannot play cricket. Actually, over here in this sentence, play is also a finite verb. That's correct, Akash. Play is also a finite verb. It's actually cannot play is considered one finite verb together. Okay, because it's cannot is basically modal auxiliary verb that is used here. So we cannot play or we could not play. It is actually a finite verb, and play, of course, is the first form of the verb. So that's V1 anyway. Good job, Akash. That's wonderful. Yeah. So main clause simply means a clause that can stand alone on its own. It can simply stand alone on its own, and it makes complete sense on its own. What do we mean by it can stand alone on its own? That it makes complete sense. It does not need anything else, any other clause to make full sense here. And when we say dependent clause, the word itself makes it very clear. The word dependent, that means it depends on the main clause to make complete sense. It cannot stand on its own, stand alone on its own. For example, the word since it is raining. Now, since it is raining, it makes some sense, like partial sense, but not complete sense. But then when I combine it, we cannot play cricket since it is raining. Then since it is raining makes complete sense because it depends on the main clause. Okay, that's what it is. So can you want me to explain the subject again? Okay, I'll do that. Let me just explain the main concept here. All right. Now. Let's talk about both the clauses together. See, subordinate clause cannot stand on its own. It should have a main clause preceding or succeeding it. Like if there is a subordinate clause, a dependent clause, it cannot stand on its own. It does not have its own meaning. It always have a it must have a main clause preceding or succeeding it. What do we mean by preceding? That is before it. Succeeding after it. So look at this example here. The first example, if you see, it is there. So main clause is after the subordinate clause. Since it is raining, we cannot play cricket. Please close the door before going out. So you see, the over here in this first sentence, the text that is highlighted in yellow, this is subordinate clause. The one that is highlighted in orange is main clause. And over here, this is the other way around. The main clause is highlighted in orange, and subordinate clause anyway is highlighted in yellow. It is as that it is used the it is reversed. Okay. So we always need a main clause either before the subordinate clause or after it. Like preceding it matlab before it, succeeding it is it follows. Precedes matlab it comes before it, succeed means it simply comes after it. It follows. Okay, precedes or follows. Perfect. All right. That's what it is about. Now, how do we identify that? That's the main part here. You see, how do we identify main clause and subordinate clause? Look at this here. So when a sentence consists of a main clause and a subordinate clause, they are joined by a subordinating conjunction, which are subordinators. We've seen the list already. So in every sentence, you will have one subordinator, at least one subordinator. You see, words like when, because, although, if, etc. And point to be noted here, this is the most important point, guys. Subordinate clause starts with a subordinator. Pay attention. Subordinate clause always begins with a subordinator. Look at these examples. Look at the first one. Internet shopping internet shopping is very popular because it is convenient. See, internet shopping is very popular because internet shopping is very popular today because it is convenient. So look at the word because. This word because is a subordinator. So because it is convenient is a subordinate clause and internet shopping is very popular today is the main clause. Both have only one finite verb. So from because to convenient, this is subordinate clause, and from internet to today, that's the main clause. Look at the second one. Since he was burnt by the kettle, he went to the clinic. Now subordinate clause starts with a subordinator. What is the subordinator here? Since. So subordinate clause starts from since and you have to end it at kettle. Okay. So since he was burnt by the kettle, that's the subordinate clause. He went to the clinic. Yeah. So both must have only one finite verb each. Wait, I'll highlight that as well for you guys so it becomes easier for us to understand. See, so since internet is, so the word is I'll highlight this in red. So the word is a finite verb here. Okay, and even here, if you see, again, is a finite verb. Perfect. Yeah. Now look at this here. Since he was burned by the kettle, over here, was is a finite verb. Because a clause is a group of words with only one finite verb. So both main clause and subordinate clause must have only one finite verb. Both main clause and subordinate clause must have only one finite verb. So look at this here. Second example, since he was burnt by the kettle, was is a finite verb here, and he went to the clinic, went is a finite verb here. So since to kettle is a subordinate clause and he to clinic is a main clause. In the first one, internet to today is from internet to the word today is the main clause, and because it is convenient is a subordinate clause. Okay, that's how it is. Now, how do we understand this? This is very clear from this point. Subordinate clause starts with a subordinator. See, subordinate clause starts with a subordinator, but it must have only one finite verb. You see, it must have only one finite verb. Okay, Akash is a question, is burnt a verb? Yes, it is a verb. It is actually the participle here. Okay, he was burnt. It is the third form of the verb. burn, burnt, burnt. So it is used as adjectival participle. Okay, so it is not a finite verb. Only was is a finite verb. All right. So this is how we identify the main clause and subordinate clause. That's the main part. In a sentence, this is how we identify the main clause and subordinate clause. The best method is, first of all, you identify the subordinator. Look at this example. First of all, you identify the subordinator. So the word because is a subordinator from the list of subordinators. Now, subordinate clause starts with a subordinator. So of course, it will start from because and you end it at convenient. Just make sure it has only one finite verb. Okay, and whatever remains is a main clause. You see, internet shopping is very popular today, is anyway the main clause. And the second one, since is a subordinator. So since he was burned by the kettle, that's a subordinate clause. The only finite verb is was, and he went to the clinic is the main clause. Yeah. Okay, you want me to explain subordinator? Subordinator is nothing but a type of conjunction. This is the list of subordinators, guys. So under conjunction, there are basically two main types, coordinating conjunctions and subordinating conjunctions. They are popularly known as coordinators and subordinators. Yeah. So here we see we have subordinating conjunctions. To understand clauses, we need subordinating conjunctions. Without subordinating conjunctions, that is without subordinators, we cannot learn clauses. Okay, I hope this is clear for all of us here. Superb, clear, mind-blowing, awesome, crystal clear, makhan clear. How clear this is, please tell me in the chat box. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, Kanak wants me to explain the subject part again. All right, Kanak, I'll do it for you. 1 minute right now. The subject object is this. This is what subject object is. For those who have missed the subject object part here, few of you have doubts in the subject object part, so I'm just kind of repeating this for you. A subject is a part of a sentence. A subject is a part of a sentence that contains a person or thing performing the action. In this example, if you see, Jennifer walked to the shop. The word Jennifer is a subject. Subject just means the doer of the action. Any noun or pronoun before the verb who's performing the action is a subject. And any noun or pronoun after the verb, the receiver of the action is the object. So in the second example, if you see Terry ate a cake, Terry is a subject. I'm not highlighting this here because I'm talking about object here. Ate is a verb. And what is the receiver of the action? A cake is a receiver, right? Like the action is done on it. So I'm saying a cake is the object here. All right. So I hope this is clear for you guys now. Amazing, superb, mind blowing. Great, great, great. This is one important point. This is one important point here. How is the punctuation used in clauses? If you see, if a sentence begins with a subordinate clause, you see, when subordinate clause begins a sentence, like a sentence starts with a subordinate clause, it is often separated by commas. You look at this here. So if you are ever in France, let's meet soon. So if from if to France, this is a subordinate clause. Look at the second one. While waiting for the school bus, Tim ate his breakfast. So from while to bus, that's a subordinate clause. And you have a comma after that. Yeah. It's followed by a comma and then the main clause. That's how the punctuation is used. Shikha, we don't need the coordinators now. I'll give you the introduction of coordinators when we do simple compound complex. We will need coordinators for simple compound complex. For now, let's learn subordinators first. Please be thorough with the list of subordinators first. No, Akash, phrase does not have any finite verb. Phrase by definition means a group of words without any finite verb. Is there any common definition of clause? Yeah, we just saw that at the beginning. A clause is a group of words with only one finite verb. Only one finite verb. So clause is a group of words with only one finite verb. When we say group of words, that means at least two words, right? Now, when there is only one word, I cannot call it a group of words. So it's a group of words with only and only one finite verb. And phrase is a group of words without any finite verb. That's the difference. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Now look at the types of subordinate clauses. I'll just introduce these types to you and we will continue this in the second session. Look at this here. So there are three types here to the subordinate clause. Main clause does not have any types. So when we say main clause is just main clause. There are no subtypes to main clause. But there are three important subtypes to subordinate clause. So under subordinate clauses, there is under dependent clauses. There are three important types. According to their nature, they are classified. The first one is noun clause, then adjective clause, and adverb clause. So noun, adjective, adverb. Noun, adjective, adverb. Noun may have subtypes. We will discuss that. Adjective clause does not have any subtypes. Adverb clause has 9 subtypes. Okay, so stay tuned for that. We'll discuss that in the next session, in the second session of it. Okay, now before we end the session, we will quickly discuss the 5 examples. How is that we can identify the main clause and subordinate clause. Okay, let's do it on our own. So look at this here. Even though it was raining, we played football. See, the subordinator over here is underlined. That is even though. So the word even though is a subordinator. So even though it was raining, the part in yellow, this is the subordinate clause. We played football, the part in white, it's the main clause. As soon as it began to snow, I went inside the house. So I went inside the house is the main clause. As soon as is a subordinator, it began to snow, that's a subordinate clause. Although I prepared very well, I failed in the examination. That is unfortunate. That should not happen, but this is just an example. So although is a subordinator again. Although I prepared very well, I failed in the examination. So I failed in the examination in the main clause, and although I prepared very well, that's the subordinate clause. While I was waiting for the train, I watched a movie. So I watched a movie is the main clause, and from while to train is the subordinate clause, while being the subordinator. He wanted to be a doctor. He wanted to be a doctor since he was passionate about it. So since is the reason here. The since is a subordinator of reason. So since he was passionate about it, that's a subordinate clause. And he wanted to be a doctor. So he wanted to be a doctor is the main clause. That's what it is about. Okay. Some of you are asking about the rap in this topic. I don't have a rap in this topic, but then I'm trying to create a song in this topic. I'm trying to make a song. I'll reveal that surprise of the song in the second session. Okay. Yes, there is a song for clauses also, but to understand that song properly, it was really important to understand the concepts first. So that's why the first session is about the concepts. Okay. Okay, Akash is the question, do we have a relative clause? Relative clause anyway is a type of subordinate clause. Okay, so that is something we will discuss in the upcoming sessions. Okay, I hope this is clear for you guys now. So what we have done is we have at the beginning we saw the definition of a clause. I'll do a quick repack. I'll do a quick recap here. My repack बोल रहा था. See repack. That's a slip of tongue. You see, like when you try to speak faster than usual, you like repack. It's recap. All right. So we'll do a quick recap. You see. So we'll do it now. A clause is a group of words that contains only one finite verb. That's the basic difference between the most fundamental difference between a clause and a phrase. So clause is a group of words that has only one finite verb, and phrase is a group of words without any finite verb. It has no finite verb at all. That's the basic difference. To understand clauses thoroughly, we must know what a finite verb is. So finite verb is a verb that shows tense and has a subject, as you see this in the examples. Don't ignore the non-finite verb. We don't want non-finite verb here. Simply look at the finite verb. The finite verb is a verb that has a subject before it, or the placement of a subject is possible before it, and it shows tense. In these examples, and we have seen this. And then after that, we saw what is the subject and object all about. So subject basically is a doer of the action before the verb. Noun or pronoun doer of the action before the verb, and object is noun or pronoun receiver of the action after the verb. Okay, this is what we saw. And then I gave you this list of common subordinating conjunctions. You please take a screenshot of this where the common subordinators are used here. This is a list of common subordinators. Okay, there are coordinating conjunctions and subordinating conjunctions. Subordinating conjunction is nothing but a type of conjunctions there. All these words are under that category. subordinating conjunctions. So they are called subordinators. Yeah. And after this, we saw how there are two main types of clauses here. If you see, there is main clause, that is called principal clause as well, or independent clause, or dependent clause. So main clause and subordinate clause. Yeah. And then what we have seen is how that we can identify main clause and subordinate clause. So how is that we identify? Main clause makes complete sense. Okay, so that is why it is also called independent clause. Subordinate clause does not make complete sense. That is why it is called dependent clause. But they both have only one finite verb. That's why it's a clause, right? The definition of clause, it must have only one finite verb. And this is the basic difference between main clause and subordinate clause. And one important point about subordinate clause is that every subordinate clause always starts with a subordinator. Yeah, every subordinate clause always begins with a subordinator. That's what it is. And another important point is subordinate clause, as it does not make complete sense on its own, it always has a main clause preceding it, that is before it, or succeeding it, that is after it, as in these examples. And how's that you identify that? That's what I told you. Subordinate clause always starts with the subordinator. And whenever there is a sentence of clauses in any example, you will always have one main clause and one subordinate clause, which is always connected with these subordinating conjunctions. You know, the list that we saw of subordinating conjunctions, and something like when, because, although, if, etc. So you will have these words here. See, when a sentence consists of a main clause and a subordinate clause, they are joined by these subordinating conjunctions. Okay, that's the list here. And these are the examples we've seen, the common list of subordinating conjunctions. We've seen how punctuation is used, how comma is used when there is a subordinate clause in the main clause. And I've just introduced three types of subordinate clause. There is a noun clause, adjective clause, and adverb clause. We will discuss about them in detail in upcoming sessions, and these 5 examples here. Okay. So I hope one of the most challenging topics is really simple and clear for all of you. At least the beginning is clear. The base of the clauses is clear, so that we can continue learning in session 2. So stay tuned for session 2. Thank you so much. Please leave your valuable feedback. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Share this video with your other friends so that they know about clauses, and they can also join us for the second session of the clauses, wherein I am trying my best to have a song in it. I'm trying to compose a song so that we make the topic as interesting as possible. So stay tuned for that surprise in session 2. For now, I'm signing off. Until next time, take care all of you. Stay healthy, stay safe. Bye bye.